5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being able to join us. Last night was, best way I could put it, it was a Leicester City of an evening. And that's being polite. I was sat here with my guest, waiting to go live. The whole thing had been working. It was there in the green room. We were talking away, and I pressed go live, and I got the spinning wheel of death because Google Cloud decided to have an outrage, and we couldn't. We were just sat there like, give me half an hour, and I had to let the guy go in the end. We'll be back on Monday night with that one. I do apologise to anybody who was sort of left stranded yesterday, but I think it all went down all over the place, I'll tell you. Prashant, good evening. Thank you very much. Craig as well. And Ray, happy Friday. That's about as much as we've got to celebrate, isn't it, really? And you know what? Like I say, not been a season to celebrate. If you're watching this, do get in, as I put at the start. If you've got any questions for Steve, who's very kindly agreed to join us, you know what you get with Steve. He's going to be honest. And look, as you can see there, this is number 8 in the series of my Project Reset. It's got its own playlist on the channel, Leicester Till I Die TV there. Number 1, relegation and what it means for Leicester. Number 2, who's going to be gone next season? Hopefully about 90% of them. Number 3, is it time for the youngsters? Well, I think we know the answer to that one now. Number 4, is time up for King Power? That was what a lot of people wanted King Power out earlier in the season. Number 5, choosing our next manager. How should we do it? That got quite lively with Manny, who will be joining me for the news show at 9 o'clock tonight. Sack the board. As always, you know, like I was saying to Steve before we came live, if the hot dogs aren't cooked properly, it's John Rudkin's fault. Number 7, do the fans have to take any responsibility? They are all up on the YouTube channel now. Do go and check it out, like I say, under the Project Reset playlist. And the final one tonight, what responsibility do the players have to take? I've been saying all along that the buck stops with the manager. And then it's up to those above him to decide whether he stays or goes. But it is ultimately his responsibility to get the best out of the players. And if they're not performing, replace them with players that can probably perform. But then again, when you cross that white line, what control does Rude or any manager have with the players? How do players actually go out and think, I don't want to play for this guy anymore? Steve Lynex will be answering all these questions and more. Get your questions in at the side as we go through, and we'll try and put some of those to Steve during the show. If you're watching on catch-up, add your comments below. Thank you very much if you're doing that. And if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, I appreciate you lending me your ears. Let's get this show on the road, as they say. Let's talk Leicester. Let's talk Project Reset. Steve, it's been a while. Welcome along. I nearly sounded professional there, didn't I?
It's very, very good, mate. Very good.
Cheers. First of all, congratulations on the new job.
Thank you.
Well done, sir. And as we saw, as we did talk before, getting your wallet back as well. There is some nice, good people out there. Look, I know you know, Leicester's close to your heart, and I know I'm going to get honest answers from you today. You saw there, we've been looking at sort of who is to blame. It's been a disaster, not just this year. Yes, we had the good season last year, but we'd had to drop down a season. The season before that, it all went wrong. And I think a lot of people have to take the blame. You know, Top's got to take his share, John Rudkins, Susan Whelan, they've all got to take the share. But a lot of people do blame the players. Do they have to take a certain amount of responsibility for what's happened?
I think they have to take high 90% of the blame, because, like you just said, once they go over the white line, it's what they do on the pitch. And I'll go back to what we were talking about before. My last game was a Newcastle game at home, and after 10 minutes, people were just starting to walk out around me, and you felt sorry for them because they're hardened season ticket owners. You know, they go every game, and they just sit there expecting some excitement, something to happen, but it doesn't. But they're still loyal, and they go back for the next game and the next game. And the bigger clubs, they're lucky. Your Man Cities, your Arsenals, your Liverpool. Well, not so much Liverpool, but Tottenham's. They get people that are not proper club hardcore supporters. They're just like, you know, the ones that support Man United and go once every so often. So, you know, they put up with the kind of things. But when you've got a club like Leicester, where it's basically all people from Leicester that go to the games, that's the thing, the annoying thing or the frustrating thing for the fans.
I mean, let's start at a good place to start, the start of the season. You know, we'd got promoted. You know, Enzo went, and as annoyed as I was at the time, I totally understand it. You know, it's a job. He's got a better offer. I've done that in my career. And then, of course, we had the fun with the, you know, the after he'd left, the picture when they were in Brussels, was it, or somewhere at Christmas, holding the sign up, you know, Enzo, we miss you. Look, he went, and we've got to accept that a club like Leicester, there's always somebody bigger, isn't there? I mean, look at Liverpool. You know, I think he said Terence Trent D'Arby then. Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's gone to Real Madrid. Like I say, there's always seems to be a bigger club out there. But when you you just had a good season, you just got promoted as a player, and the manager changes, not because he's been sacked, you know, because his choice to leave, and somebody comes in who, let's be honest with you, didn't get you as excited about stuff as Enzo did, didn't play the same way. How do you take that as a player? How do you react to that?
It's hard to say in a way, because, you know, you've got the manager who he does the system, he does the team talk and whatever, but at the end of the day, you're not playing for the manager. You're playing for the badge and the shirt that you put on. That should always come first. Yeah. Now, the thing that I found, and, you know, I'm an old player from the 80s, right, where it was 100% effort all the time. You're not getting out now in the modern day football. And that's the problem. And I'm not slagging the modern day players off in a way, but I am in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it from both sides. And I don't know if it's too much money. I don't know if it's too much comfort, how they're treated, how they're spoken to, because I think, and I still feel, you have to be scared of the manager. You have to be scared of the manager. Because if you don't, and you're on good terms and nothing ever is said, like whatever, you're never going to get the kick up the backside that you need. And I feel like the games I watched Leicester play, and no disrespect to them at the moment, but they showed they didn't give a shit if. They didn't give a damn. If they,
We say a lot worse than that this last season, I'll tell you.
They looked as though they didn't give a damn if they won, lost or draw.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, I mean, look, we'll come back to earlier in the season there, but you said too much comfort. Do they feel too comfy? When you look, we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 games, and 20 games. Within those 20 games, we won against Spurs and we drew against Brighton. We lost every one. But every player, when they trod off that pitch at the end of the game, knew they were going to be playing the next game.
Correct. And that's what it's about. People go on about football clubs having big squads, and this is what really annoys me, is that they have 30 players. They have some clubs have 40 players, but you only see the same 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 players. You never see the squad players that have been there for a long time getting the chance. And it's the same with the youngsters and that as well. I'm going back to the Newcastle game. The only bright bit of that game is when the young lad, 15-year-old lad, come on about 10 minutes from the end. And that's where the club then, the people around me, started to show some excitement, and they were seeing something. But prior to that, the 80 odd minutes to that, I just sat there and I was looking up the top of the stand. I was looking around everywhere, and I didn't watch much of the game, to be honest. I was just looking at the reaction of the people and the empty seats and that. I'm thinking, what a shame.
I mean, when we go back to the Great Escape season, and we were losing after the first few games, we were losing week in, week out. At least Nigel Pearson appeared to be trying something, because the season before, when we'd won the championship, you could have predicted the team he was picking 5 weeks in advance. There, he was moving things around, and maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, but he was trying. And even as stubborn as he is, towards the end, he had to accept that he needed Mark Albrighton, brought Mark Albrighton back into the fold, and the rest, as they say. But you feel that the players had the respect for Nigel Pearson. Do you think the players had any respect for either manager this season, Steve Cooper or Ruud van Nistelrooy?
Well, you look at the body language on the side of the pitch. They're just standing there most of the time with their arm folded, saying nothing. So that, to me, if I was playing, looking across, as though there's no motivation coming from there. None at all. And you do go to the extreme where you watch the TV and some of the managers, like, they're screaming and bawling and shouting, but nothing's coming out of their mouth, but they're looking like they're doing something that they're a bit more active. But that's the presence that came across to me, is that standing there on the sidelines and what was going on the pitch was on a level par, because the manager wasn't getting agitated. He wasn't doing anything to try and change the game after 10 or 15 minutes. He wasn't seeing where the game was going wrong. And the players...
Do you think, though, I mean, we'll start with obviously Steve Cooper. Let's start with Steve Cooper. He came in, and after you got somebody as flamboyant, and look, I think when we got Enzo, it was a completely left field. Nobody was expecting it. He was, sprinkled with pep dust, and he'd held the Champions League trophy up a week before he joined us and what have you. But as a manager, he'd only had sort of 12 games at Parma. Steve Cooper and Ruud both had longer than that. We didn't actually. It just seems that. Do you think Steve Cooper was given enough time? I mean, we said Brendan was given too long, and maybe he should have gone. We know Ruud has been given too long. Was Steve Cooper, do you think, given long enough?
To be fair, I don't think he was. And I think that went against him the most was where he came from, which was, the Forest connection.
Yeah.
And I think that did have a lot, to do with it, I think. I definitely would. I liked him, to be honest, and I definitely thought he should have had more time.
Whether he would have kept us up or not, I don't know. I think we would have been a lot closer to the other teams if we'd stuck with him. Not whether we actually would have stayed up is another question. And we brought this up in the show when we were talking about the fans. Yes, he came from Nottingham Forest, but then Martin O'Neill had Nottingham Forest connections. Wes Morgan had Nottingham Forest connections. This is the small-mindedness of the fans, isn't it, really?
Well, what you got to think about, if you look at the last three managers they've had, right? You've had Steve Cooper playing the way he does, Rude the way he does, and the other guy that plays the way he does, but nothing changed on the pitch. You got three different style managers, but nothing changed on the pitch, and that's the frustrating thing. I think that's where you got to start looking at the players, because you can only blame a manager for so long. And then, okay, they get rid of the manager, but did anything change when they got the next manager? Might have done for a couple of games, but then after that, it went back to the same old thing. And then towards the end of the season, because I don't think the Leicester fans would have minded, or if they could see Leicester fighting and putting up a fight. But to me, they weren't.
And that was the thing, like I say, with the Nigel Pearson Great Escape. I travelled up from the South Coast every home game, so I was a season ticket holder at the time. And you could see they were fighting. We were losing 2-1, 3-1 at the most. We weren't losing 4-5-0 and ridiculous scores like that. The players were fighting, and the crowd was supporting them because they could see they were putting that fight in. But a player should really, it doesn't matter who the manager is, where he's come from, what he's done. Those players are being paid a wage to play for the club and put in a decent performance. Is there any excuse where, as a player, all right, we all have bad days. We all have bad days at the office. I accept that, but not 18 out of 20 in a row, sort of thing. They should respect whoever's in that chair, shouldn't they?
Of course they should. Of course they should. And like you say, it's the thing where you put the shirt on. The main thing, and I think this is where the values are not so good in the modern game to where they were in our game, is that you had local players. There was hardly any foreigners in the game and whatever. And now when you watch TV on a Saturday, the build-up to any game on a Saturday now, if it's a local derby, the local derbies are like, this is where you get the nitty-gritty. But that many foreign players in the league now, they don't know what a local derby is.
Yeah.
The local derby's gone. You know what I mean? And where in the 80s where, you'd have all the fighting on the terraces in the streets and whatever, you don't get that so much now. But you'd still have the connection with the fans, giving the verbals and stuff like that. But poor old Leicester fans towards the end of the season, they couldn't even do that. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to have a go at the away team's fans, because what can you have a go at them for when you're watching what's going on the pitch? And that was a frustrating thing for me.
And I think to say that Luton ended up with a point more than us is kind of embarrassing. But look, Steve Cooper went, and I was quite happy with Steve Cooper, because I do think he might just have kept us up. But maybe I did want him to go at that time. Now, I then wanted Rude to come in. I mean, it was the best job interview he could have. He played Man United twice. He played as Man United interim manager against us twice and beat us twice. And he'd been the manager of PSV for a season. He'd won them, I think, their equivalent of our FA Cup. A lot more experience than Enzo had when he came in. But the stubborn, it started off very well. We got a win, and let's be honest with you, that game when he was sat in the stands, I wouldn't have blamed him if he turned around and walked back home to Holland, because we were awful in that. Was it Brighton? I think we played before. When did we sack? Brentford. It was 4-1 Brentford. we were awful. And then we beat West Ham, we drew with Brighton, and you're suddenly thinking, whoa, suddenly we may have got this right. Again, I'm thinking these players should be looking at Ruud van Nistelrooy as a god. Because and I know managers don't always make, players don't always make good managers, but he shouldn't have to have anything to prove, should he?
No. And you look at the mediocre team. Well, I wouldn't say mediocre teams, but you look at the teams that are doing well. They fall out with each other on the pitch. They've got leaders. They've got determination. And that's the thing that Leicester's been lacking for the last couple of seasons. And that's where you can't keep blaming the manager because, well, you can in a way, but it's the players mostly. If you can't get motivated yourself, then that's where you've been struggling. That's where Leicester have been struggling. Is that, you see somebody give a bad ball, but you don't see anybody give them a rollicking. You know what I mean? You see people pulling out the towels. Now, if we'd done that in our day, you get beaten up by your own players. But that's where, again, you got your hardcore. We had a lot of Scots, we had the Irish, we had the English and whatever, and that's it. But, you're going from... You try and name any English players in the Premiership like you could when you were younger. When you were younger, you knew everybody from every team.
Yeah.
You can't do that now.
No.
You can't do that now. And I do feel sorry for the youngsters because the up-and-coming youngsters, when the manager goes and the club's been unsuccessful and they've got the players there, they don't look to the youth. They'll buy in somebody from Turkey or wherever that you know nothing about and spend 34 million on them, and they'll come over and you're thinking, hang on a second, look at what you've got. The clubs are trying to build up the academies, trying to get the teams going, and the club's going, but they're not using the young players.
No.
None at all. And to be honest, you should be able to throw youngsters in because they will fight for you. They'll be raw. They'll do what they do naturally. It's only 2 or 3 years after Lynex have been in playing for you for 2 or 3 years that you see it coached out of them. And that's the big problem because every youngster that comes on, not just for Leicester, but for every team on the, in football at the moment, for a season you'll say, wow, look how good he is. But then when he's got his feet under the table and then the coaches start picking at him, he's not doing the things he used to do because the natural rawness has been taken out of him and he has to play now to the systems of the way things go. But modern football now is that if me and you or any of the fans turned up on a Saturday and Leicester were 2 men short, you could pick anybody out of the crowd, put them on the pitch, and they wouldn't look out of place.
That is very true, actually. Yeah.
Because the way the modern game's played, it's just get the ball, play it sideways, play it backwards, and that's it. And you would not look out of place. Honest to God, if you just pick 2 people.
I mean, look, those 2 players at the side there. I mean, one of them, Wout Faes, I just think he's taking out somebody else's oxygen. I really do. I think he's aware. I mean, how the hell he is a Belgium international, I do not know. But when they are playing badly, there didn't seem to be any fear, like you said earlier. Surely Ruud should be calling them over, or at half-time, get the hairdryer out and be telling them and letting them know. But if you know as a player, let me ask you this. They always say no player goes out to play badly. Right? And I think that's true. But do some players these days, on the millions of pounds that they're on, do they go out not really giving a toss?
They go out and play to the system. Now, the system is not putting the players under pressure. Every person that goes on the pitch now is not under pressure. Because one, in the olden days, if you hold on to the ball too long, somebody come through and smash you over the fence. Right? The way the football is now, you can't tackle anyhow. Every tackle or everything's a yellow card or you touch them halfway down the waist and they roll around holding the face and things like that. And, that's another part of the game where that's what he pays your money for. That's what he pays your money for. Like, I was a winger, I broke my nose 7 times, I broke my back, had my ear ripped off, I broke a few ribs, lost a few teeth. And that was part and parcel of the game. But now, the only injuries, the good injuries they get now, is the hair messed up.
Well, look at his hair, yeah. I mean, for those of you that haven't seen it, of course, I have got my Vout Phase wig.
But you've got to look at your picture there, the two players you've got there. Conor Cody, which I do like.
Yeah.
When he was playing for Wolves, what a different player. What a different player, because he was there everywhere. He was telling everybody to do. He was shouting at them. He was getting stuck in. You put him in the back line of Leicester, it's all gone.
Yeah.
You don't see any of that. Now, that's when Wolves were going through a good patch. But that's when you need your people. But when you see him play, and I do like him, bless him, there was none of that in a Leicester shirt.
No, not at all. I've got to say, I'm going to look at Vout Phase. Now, look, Vout Phase played 39 games, 37 starts.
Yeah.
He got a couple of goals and over 1,000 minutes. The number of times when I was doing the post-match review on the Monday night with Brad, that I was looking at the stats and he had not put one tackle in.
No?
Now, surely, as he was the most experienced defender in most of those games, because it was either him or Cody or Vestergaard with another. But surely it's a minimum requirement. Surely somebody should be saying to these players, "What the fuck are you doing? You're a defender. Get some tackles in." All right, one time, in one game he did make about 13 clearances, but one tackle is a minimum I would expect from a Premier League defender.
Well, if you're a forward, and I keep referring back to when I was a player and whatever.
Yeah.
Is that if you ever got the ball when you were face on, someone was coming through you, no matter what, and you're always aware of that. And sometimes it did put you off, or sometimes it did slow you down a bit. But the modern day player knows when a ball's knocked into him, he's not going to get clattered. He's not going to be put under any pressure. So then he can turn and do what he wants. And then you look at how the defenders defend it. Now, they won't go to the ball. They'll go backwards and backwards and backwards. They'll keep dropping off. And then what's made it worse for the people to watch is that when you are attacking, you'll get to the 18-yard box, and then you'll turn around and then you'll knock it back and sideways. And next thing you know, you're back on the halfway line, trying to do what you did 5 minutes ago. And instead of putting the ball in and running at people when you should have been doing it, creating problems, that you're coming out there, and that's the frustration. And that to me was a mindset for all the players. You went out there and you never saw them get into second or third gear. Now, I watched the games, and I used to watch a lot of off-the-ball stuff. And, you go down the lower leagues and you try and watch people off the ball, they're all over the place. But if you watch any Premiership player or thing where are off the ball, they've not moved out of the position, they've not moved 10 yards forward, they've not done that. They only move when the ball's coming to them. And that, to me, well, it's killed the game years ago, but that, to me, typifies that you're always under one gear. You're never in the second gear. You're never in third gear. And that's how we defenders get caught out. That's how they get caught flat-footed, because they're not on the toes, not sharp enough. And it was a regular thing last season.
But again, do you think that is the players' fault? I know you said that they've got to take 90+% of the blame. Or is that the manager's fault for letting them get into that state? And like I said, those 20 games, I bet you at least that we lost, I bet you at least 15 of those, it was the same team, same formation, same tactics.
But then you can say, look at your Brightons, look at your Brentfords, look at things like that. They go at you, but they also defend. They defend the way they attack. Every man comes back, every man goes there, the movement's quicker. And that's the only thing that killed Leicester. And if you look at the games that Leicester won, they only won the games when they've done it quick. And they lost the majority of the games because they played the same way and they've done it slow. And this passing back, starting play from the goalkeeper, passing it back, this is what I can't understand. When you're at the bottom of the league, you want that ball to be as far away from your goal as you can. But starting with right next to your goal, you're under pressure all the time.
Mm.
And because the Leicester players weren't running off the ball or running with the ball, and the reason I said that is because I watched the podcast last week with Thierry Henry, and if you listen to what that guy says, that's football. Now, when you're playing against a middle four and a back five, if you get one player, run at them, he takes out the four. You can pass as much as you want in front of them, you won't get past them. But if that one player has the balls to get the ball run at them, you've took that line of four out. What do they do then? And that wasn't happening with Leicester. They were trying to play too much football, and they were comfortable at doing it. And then I felt sorry for Vardy because he has lost a bit of pace. But when he was in his prime, he still tried to do it. The ball wasn't coming to him.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? And you mentioned Vardy there, and I said we could have had Cristiano Ronaldo, I believe, has he gone back to Manchester United or something again? But if you look, we could have had him up front. We could have had him and Messi up front. It wouldn't have made any difference because we weren't getting the ball upfield. And when you look at, and Christensen has taken a lot of blame, and we did a show the other night where we were giving the player ratings for the season under Rude, and when he got the ball, Christensen, he'd run down the wing with it. He'd got nobody to pass it or cross into the box because nobody was there, or very rarely was anybody there. And then he'd end up turning around and coming back again. But again, is that because he's doing something wrong, or is that because he's being told that to do that by the manager?
It's a bit of both. Like, the manager will have his plans, and then he'll have how he wants to set up and play against somebody. Mm. But you've got to have that thing inside you to say, hang on a second, that's not working, let's go. But you look at the season and the good games that Leicester have played. Now, when we ended a good season, it's because it was all attack. All attacking players, they were attack-minded. You very rarely spoke about the defence because you didn't need to. Because the forwards and the midfield players, they were taking the shine because they were doing what they should be doing naturally. Now, there's nothing stopping any Leicester player out there getting the ball and running with it. But you don't see them doing it. And that's where they have to take responsibility, because you can't play the way the manager wants you to play every game, because the ball doesn't dictate that, and the opposition doesn't dictate that. And it's foolish for the players to think, right, the manager's told me I've got to do a lot of this, I'm going to do this. And that's a cop-out from the player, and it's a cop-out for the manager. And if you look at the players, but you had 3 managers in a short time, but you've had the same players. And that's the problem. The players on the pitch haven't taken, you look at other teams where they look vibrant, they look attacking, they look faster. They're doing that, not the manager. They're doing it. They're doing it by the off-ball running. They're doing it with their determination. But I couldn't see a Leicester player, not even in his face when you got a close-up on him or whatever. He looked as though, I don't give a shit. I don't care. And that's the frustrating thing, isn't, I'm a Payne fan like everybody else. I want excitement when I go there. And I don't mind Leicester losing and going down. If you've gone there thinking, well, what a great game. We were beaten by a better team, but at least you could see we can do it. But, I felt sorry for the people sitting around me, because the frustration and the support's there, the loyalty's there, but they're not soft. They're not soft, and they don't. And I didn't hear anybody having a go directly at the manager when I was at the games. I heard him going at the players, which is totally right. But the players didn't do anything different from the first minute to the 90th minute.
Yeah, and I they don't get to the games now, but I do the watch-alongs, and I'm watching this game, and I'm watching so-called professional footballers play the ball out when they're trying to. I used to play FIFA, and when you sort of, if you get it wrong on the PlayStation, and you suddenly you're running with the ball and you suddenly run it out of play because you got no idea what you're doing. And I'm seeing Indeedy do that, and he's passing to nobody, and he's just passing it out, and it is the simple things that these so-called international players weren't doing.
Yeah, because it's the mindset.
A manager can't. He would expect these players to be able to pass. I'm sure he'll do drills during training. But what responsibility has he got when indeed he tries to pass it to somebody but plays it out instead?
But you look at the opposition that comes to Filbert Street or any club or you go to, right? Is that the mindset is now, or it has been in the last couple of years, is to more on the opposition. How do we stop the opposition? And that's where I feel Leicester have let themselves down, because they're worried too much about the opposition. Now, when Leicester were, when it was a fortress, when they were doing well, and that's when they did win the Premiership, nobody could handle it. Nobody could handle it because every player on that pitch was running 120%. They were getting stuck in, they were closing down, they were shouting at each other, they were arguing. If somebody gave a bad ball, somebody let him know about it. And that, I feel, is where the players have lost it on the pitch. And I keep going back to it. Where is the leader from Leicester City? Where is the leader in that group?
We haven't got one, have we? I don't think
haven't got one. So who's the motivator to say, boy, let's get going? Who's the motivator to do something? There's nobody. And they're playing with the expectations of, okay, if I give the ball away, don't care. How many times do you see a player give the ball away and he doesn't chase back?
Oh.
He just stands there going, oh, give it away, so what?
Yeah.
And that, to me, that comes from the player. It can't come from the manager, because the manager now he's so tied to what he can say and what he can do. Because, you go back to the great manager, go back to the old times, the eminent players, like I remember Jock Wallace and whatever. If you didn't do it, mate, you were straight off the pitch. Straight off the pitch. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what star you are. You're not doing the basics. Get off. Now, you can't do that to Leicester because every one of them on the pitch was the same. So you couldn't single anybody out. And that was a frustrating thing.
The thing with, and I keep coming back to Valface, but he is my pet hate this season. And I really do hope we sell him. But, every time he gave the ball away, and somebody said he was doing it for Belgium, didn't he? He'd just sort of go, put his arms up and go like, what? Well, like you said earlier, they should be playing for the badge, playing for the club. But if and all right, you could argue that we hadn't got the biggest squad, but we had got alternative players there, but they just weren't being used. Now, people are going to have the favourites, they're not going to have the favourites. But if Samari puts in a bad performance week in, week out, take him out and put Skip in. But when you're going to still be there 5 games, no matter how badly you played, surely there's a little bit of you that, and they shouldn't do, but surely there's a little bit of you that goes, it doesn't matter what I do today.
Totally 100%. And that's your problem. That is your problem, because footballers, there's not a hardship for football anymore. There's not a hardship. We had to go in basic training, any training day, really. And if you weren't sick in some of the training sessions, you weren't doing it right. Now, you go in now and you see the modern day footballer where, they got masseurs, they got the best things around, they're going around in flip-flops. What I hate is seeing flip-flops and earphones on. What a lot of shit that is. Yeah. And they're in their own world as, oh, look at me, blah, blah, blah. And the thing for me, the experience was, I went to the Newcastle game, and the first thing that greeted me was electronic gate to get in. Right, so there, you've lost your bit of banting because it's all electronics.
Yeah.
You go in there, You get there, you sit on there. You see the kids at the front with little autograph books, little things shouting. Players totally blank them. Totally blank them. Getting off the coach. You've all seen it on TV what they do. Get off the coach, earphones in, blah, blah, blah. Kids have been waiting there for hours, spent hundreds of pounds to get there. I can just ignore them, walk straight past them. To me, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's awful because you're seeing a different side. Like, I know you can't do it anymore, but, you go back to the older generation there, which people are probably listening to, whatever. If you went out on a Thursday night in a pub, you'd probably be standing next to a footballer. And you'd be talking to these footballers out. It's your best mate and whatever. But then your footballer then on a Saturday, he'd go out and perform.
Yeah.
He'd go out and kick people up in the air. He'd run till his veins popped out of his face for you, for the badge, and for the club.
Mm.
Now, this is the thing is now, and the thing is that not only Leicester's experience, we're talking about Leicester, so it's got to be a Leicester experience, but like I say, the players are paid big amounts of money. You should be running through brick walls. You should be smashing the brick walls, and that should be showing the people that, mate, I'll gladly pay you 80 grand a week because I like watching you do it. But the frustration is, you go, fucking hell, £80 a bleeding week, and you can't even run sprints and close somebody down.
I would love to see some of the players that are in the current squad try and do Jock Wallace's Hill.
Oh, they get nowhere near. They wouldn't even get out the car.
No,
They wouldn't even get out the car. We used to turn up, and people going about climate change now, but you go back to our days when it was cold. It was bloody cold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you had to go out in shorts. You had no gloves. You had hardly any clothes on, and that was it. Like, you were freezing, but you had to run to stay warm. Now you watch the players go out. They got the tights on. They got the gloves on. They got the hats on. And you're thinking to yourself, hang on, well, I think flipping it, mate, you look all right to her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you don't see him working hard in training either. You don't see him working hard in training. And I don't think, where you could go to the training grounds at times and watch people and watch how hard they do work, you can't do that anymore. So you don't know what goes beyond the closed doors. But it's more about, I don't know,
I mean, they put the videos up, but obviously they can edit what goes onto those videos to make it look probably better than it is. But I don't think any of those players, probably I think that some of the youngsters would put in more of an effort than some of the so-called internationals. And I'm going to say that I put this. Prashant's made this point here. Obviously, when relegation is hanging over you, as a player, again, does that pressure get to you, or should the manager be deflecting that pressure? Because as he says there, and we've seen it all the time, once a team is relegated, then that pressure's off. They can sort of suddenly start to play a little bit better because they're playing with a little bit of freedom. Is it wrong to say?
Half your players will go because they'll turn around and say, "Oh, well, I don't want to play in the Championship. I'm too good to play in the Championship."
But those last few games,
they don't take the responsibility that, hang on a second, I just took Leicester down.
Yeah,
it's my fault and my 10 mates that we're in the Championship.
But we as fans say, look, these guys are on 50, 60, 70 grand a week. They should be able to handle the pressure. Is that us being unfair, or should they be able to?
Mate, to me, there's no pressure. And with the performances have shown, there's no pressure.
Mm.
Because Leicester were down halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And that's the worrying and the disappointing thing is that most fans sitting on them chairs were saying halfway through the season, we've gone. Because they couldn't see a change in attitude. You can say that the manager tried to change it and move different people to different positions, but week in, week out, you never saw the attitude change. You never saw a player lose his rag. You never saw anybody, kick somebody. And I feel sorry for, the left back of Chelsea. Everybody hates him, which I hate him as well. But he's a niggly little twat. And he will cause, and that's why he gets booed, because he will do things that really do. But I think when you look at it, if he was playing for Leicester, you'd say, wow, he's the only one that's put some effort in, kicks someone up in the air. And that is what Leicester's missing. And I feel sorry for the young kids that's coming in because they will be told, whoa, calm down a bit. I've seen it in training sessions where you got the youth team going into, into the next step up. Yeah. And then you got senior players that when they got a chap running around, you're 100 mile an hour and he's kicking you and he's in your face and wherever you go, whoa, slow yourself down, calm down. We don't do that. And that's what's happening. And that's where the game won't progress for the youngsters because they're seeing what's happening in the Premiership and they're acting and doing what they do in the Premiership. And it's not suiting them.
If I was just, I'm going to be honest and sit here and say, the only player that I actually saw quite often put a bit of attitude in and get worked up was Casey McAteer, and he's one of the youngsters. And you shouldn't be looking around, and you should be looking at players like Cody and what have you. The elder statesman of the team, and maybe even Faze, who's an international. They're the ones that should be giving it some stick, But Casey McAteer, I think if he'd have come up against Mike Tyson in a couple of them games, he'd have given it a little bit. But look, do you think? Because of course it's been said that there's too much player power. When Claudio went, supposedly it was the players that got rid of him. Mark Albrighton would now say it wasn't. Same with Puel. Is there too much power? I mean, is Rude being dictated to by saying, well, you better pick me this week, otherwise I'm not turning up next week for training?
A player will never say that, but a player will do it. And the prime example of that for me is Tottenham Hotspur, because they do it to every manager.
Yeah.
I don't think they should have sacked the guy this year, but they've only sacked him because of the players, not him. It's the players.
You don't think he was sacked? I mean, he just won them the European Cup, for God's sake. But they finished.
Look at Man United. They're exactly the same. Exactly the same player power. Yeah. The only team, to be honest, that's not got player power is Man City, because Pep won't let it happen, and you have to play what Pep says. Pep, you look at the Grealish situation. I used to like Grealish, but if he's not doing it, Pep will drop him. Not doing it, he'll drop him, and he won't play people, and that's how it should be. But whereas you got Rude and that, he's looking at his squad and looking whatever, thinking, I've got to play him. Because if I don't play him, all the fans are going to be on my back because I haven't played him. But, you look at Rude. I can't see Rude. I don't know the guy. He's probably brilliant. He probably does what he does. And he'll probably call me a twat and beat me up if he saw me. But I can't see how he has motivated any of the players this year. No. By standing there on the sideline with arms folded, when you're 2-0 down, thinking, how can I change the game? And he doesn't do anything. But you've got 20,000 people in the stand telling you exactly what you should be doing.
It was interesting because, like I say, we did the show on Monday night, 2 shows with Brad, and when we reviewed the marks that we gave to the players, we compared it to the marks that we'd given to the players when Steve Cooper was sacked to see whether Rude had made any difference. And I have to say, in 50% of the cases, they were worse. They got a worse mark under Rude than they did when they were under Steve Cooper. But what's your thought on the likes of Harry Winks? Right. So his wife, I believe, just had a baby, and Ruud van Nistelrooy says, "I want you to stay over at the at Seagrave," and Harry Winks says, well, when I signed, I said I live in Hemel Hempstead, wherever it is, but I was told that was all right. I could travel every day. But my wife's just had a baby. I'd like to go home, be with the baby, and, I'll come back and I'll be there the next day for you, and etc. And that upset Rude, apparently, and he dropped him and we never saw him again. And yet, he's probably, you could argue, probably our best midfielder.
Best midfielder, but then the manager's thinking, I haven't got the dressing room. I haven't got the dressing room, because if I let him do that, then it's okay for him. But what about the 3 or 4 players that have just gone, well, how can he do that and I can't? Why can't I do what you get in? And then you're creating a thing within itself. And then that's what happens. And that's where you've got nobody, the skipper should have turned around and said, well, hang on a minute, you can do what you want if we're winning. You can do what you want if we win, we'll all do it. But that's the thing that's there. Oh, I can do what I want because I don't care. I'm on 50 grand a week. If I don't play this week, it doesn't bother me. I'm still going to be 50 grand. And then at the end of the season, I'll move on to another club.
Did not think there was extenuating circumstances with his wife just having had a baby.
Yeah, and you've got to take that things into effect. But at the end of the day, say a war broke out and you're sending a soldier to the front line, and if he turns around and says, "Oh, my wife's just having a baby, can I go back?" Do you think they'll fucking let you go back?
I've got no answer to that. I'm going to say.
You got a job to do here on the front line. You got to kill a few people and that whatever. Once you've killed a few and we've won the war, you can go back. And that's the problem. Is that okay? Things like that happen, but it's not a death in the family, is it? It's not. You've brought a baby into the world anyhow, and as a player on so much £1,000 a week, you have to make sacrifice.
Yeah.
You talk to a player, you talk to somebody in the stand, and this is the problem, you talk to somebody in the stand, say, right, I'll give you 50 grand a week to go out there, run around on that pitch for 90 minutes, kick out of people, the social aggression. What do you think they'd do? They would do exactly that.
Yeah.
Right? You say that's a modern day footballer, right? I want you to go out today, run around for 90 minutes, kick out of everybody, be a twat. Do you think they do? No.
And what about Yannick Vestergaard taking his dog into training? Did you hear about that?
I didn't hear about that, to be honest. But
no, again, he couldn't get. I believe I'm not 100% sure, but I believe whoever was supposed to be looking after his dog couldn't. So he was late arriving, waiting for somebody that didn't turn up. And so he brought the dog into training with him. I mean, personally, I'd have put a blue shirt on him and probably got him to play. At least he'd have run after the bloody ball. But again, are we making too much of these little things because of the way that, if we were winning every week, it wouldn't matter, would it?
Right, I'll give you a scenario. When I played for Leicester, I lived over in Birmingham, right? Yeah. And it was snowing, and we had really heavy snow. We're talking about 4 to 6 inches of snow. I phoned Jock Wallace up. Jock, Gaffer, I ain't going to be able to get in today, too much snow. He goes, if you're not fucking here by 11 o'clock, you won't play again, right? It took me 3-4 hours to get to Leicester to turn up for training. When I got there was nobody there. Nobody there, right? And the next time I saw him, he was sniggering at me because that's what he said. You make an effort to get there. And he made me make that effort to get there, and I got there. But he told everybody else, don't worry about it because it was snowing. But that's the thing, the drive you've got to put in players.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And okay, just because your wife's had a baby and you need to spend some time with them, you can still do that. But if you're being paid that amount of money, and you go back to the modern day Joe and everybody, like especially me and that, there's times now where you feel so bad, you think, oh, you're going to work today, but you go because you have to go, because you have to earn your money to pay your bills. Now, the privileged players, and I'm not slagging them off too much because I played football. I didn't get as much money as them, but it was a good wage then. But when you come out of football, you still have to work. But these guys here should be seen. They should be seeing football as what we saw. It's your job. You have to do it.
Mm.
And to come up with all these little excuses shows you that will be the same on the pitch. There'll be an excuse on the pitch. And at the moment, and I don't care if any players listening to this and they start slagging me off. You've got no hardship.
Mm.
You have got no hardship at all because you paid that much amount of money that if you was to finish football today, you wouldn't have to go out and get a job, right? You don't have to work for anything because everything's there for you. You know, you turn up, you get a massage, you get bloody whatever, you go to these crime, whatever chambers and do whatever. You get the best facilities ever. You're playing on carpets. Yeah. Go back to the old days. You weren't playing on the carpet then.
I watch ITV4. ITV4's Big Match Revisited, and I remember that pitch when Keith Weller scored that goal against Luton. Yeah, well, that was not a carpet.
That's what I mean, and that's why my son can, he compares players the modern day to when I played, and you look at that, and I'll say this to everybody: you look at Messi, you look at Ronaldo. Would they be so good if they played on the pitch that we played?
No.
Would they be that good if they played against the players we played?
No.
Because I can guarantee you now that Messi would get his leg broke within 20 minutes, and Ronaldo wouldn't get a kick.
I was just thinking then of Messi and Ronaldo against the Leeds of like Eddie Gray and
yeah.
You know. I mean, well, so we got relegated, and you've done coaching and management yourself. Do you look now at this squad and go, look? I mean, Cody may be going to Rangers. Faze may hopefully want lead the club to save his international career. Do you look at the future of Leicester being the youth players? Because we've had Seagrave, not really seen much happen from that. But let's say like when you plant a tree, it takes a few years to get established before you sort of see blooms and what have you. Do you now put your trust in youth? Because, when you look at all these youth players that we've got, like the Mongers, the Alves, the Baybrooks, there's some good young players out there. Luke Thomas, I mean, everybody derided him last season. This season, he's been one of our best players. Again, showing more attitude than some of the older ones. Do you say put your trust in youth for next season?
You've got to have a blueprint. You've got to have a seed. And I think once you get that seed and plant that seed, you can make anything grow around it. And that's what Leicester need to do, is go back to why did we win the Premiership? You go back and think, how did we win the Premiership? Because we played to a certain way. Now, the teams knew how you were going to play, but they couldn't stop you. And now that's the modern thing is now, because you haven't got a team of fighters. I could go out as a manager now, I can tell you exactly how Leicester play. I could tell you how to stop, and I can say to my players, they're not going to hurt you. They're not going to ruffle you up. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to come and clash you, right? So you'll be able to railroad them. And that's the thing, is that Leicester should be doing. You should have a seed. That's why Brentford do well. That's why Brighton do well, because there's a seed been planted, and the players are playing off that seed. And that's where you see the last three managers of Leicester haven't put a seed down. They've tried to play the same way with the same players through their own through the season. And no matter, even if you brought in another manager, they'd only still be doing exactly what they've done now, because there's no bite there, there's no ambition there, there's no fight there, and it'll be different next year. They were lucky last time we went down; they came up, but the Championship's now getting really, really hard, and that's where you'll see where you need to bed in some better players that want it. They want it. It's about want. It's about want all the time.
I just said, I don't know if you remember, under Brendan Rodgers, and we played in the FA Cup. It was the COVID years, I think, and we played Watford, and a lot of players were out because of COVID and what have you, and he played 4 or 5 youngsters. Watford were a Premier League team at the time, and I think we beat them 4-0, 4-1, something like that. The following week, we drew Nottingham Forest. All the big names came back, and Nottingham Forest, I think we're in the Championship, pummeled us, beat us 4-0 again, something the other way. And I always go back to that, because I'm saying the youngsters, they've got no fear. They don't know what to fear because they've not had to face it yet. I mean, the other problem is, you've you throw a baby into the swimming pool, he sinks or swims, and some of them might end up sinking, But do you think that the youngsters like the Alves, the Mongers? I mean, back in your day, I'm sure when you started playing football, probably one of the first things you did was clean the boots of the first team.
Mm.
And it showed, you from that, you learned some respect for what you were going to be doing. And you said, one day I want somebody to be cleaning my boots. They don't do anything like that these days, do they?
No, nothing at all. And, they're all, they're all plastic boots now. They don't need dubbing and rubbed and cleaned and whatever now. You just wipe them over with a cloth.
Yeah.
And if not, you'll see them change boots at half time, whatever, because they're sponsored and they have to do the thing and whatever. But that's the problem. And that's a problem Leicester will have, which could be a nice problem because you'll get a youngster in, and now that youngster's been playing all his life the way he's played to get in there. He's not for the first season or few games. He's not going to change because that's what he knows, because he'll do that. But then you'll see the manager saying, "Right, I don't want you to take him on and cross the ball because you're giving it away. I want you just to get the ball, play square, move on, get the next pass." So straight away now you can see the confusion in the guy. And I always go back to I went to a West Brom game and there was a wing called Berahino there, and I took my lad when he was young. And when he got the ball, there was 2,000-3,000 people next to us saying, take him on. And he wouldn't get the ball and pass it square. And you're thinking, take him on. And I think that's what's happening now with the younger players. They've done their thing to get where they are. Why should you ask them to do something different now, to play differently? You want them to have that raw thing. And you look at all the players who come in. Rashford, when he first come on the scene, he used to run at people, take them on, do whatever. Everybody was, saying how great he was. Then 2 or 3 seasons in with Man United, he stopped doing it. It's all coached out of him. And, and that's why you see a difference as well when you see the players go to international level. They're playing a certain way for their clubs, but when you put them into an international team, they're a shit because they're playing the same, balling sideways, backwards, and whatever. How many times did we say last year how creative our front lines are? Well, you look at the last 2 England games. Where's all that gone?
Yeah.
Where's all that gone? Where's the fight and attacking people? It's not there. And I think that's where Leicester need to go. And I think football need to go back is the basics. Is what is football all about? Football. What is football all about? It's about your off your ball running, your aggression, how much you want it. And I say to my lad, boxing's like football. If you step into a ring and you let your opponent be the same strength in the 8th round than you used in the 1st round, you've got a problem. You have to work him. You have to tire him out. You have to make his punches not hurt you so much. And that's what Leicester are not doing. They're not hurting anybody. They're not tiring anybody out. And they're definitely not taking the sting out of people. And that's what you need to get back into the club.
I want to just make a part of, hi Mel, how you doing? I'm going to whisper this, Mel. How did Arsenal do this season? She's an Arsenal fan, and Steve absolutely hates Arsenal. I can't take the piss out of Arsenal this season after the season we've had, but no.
I can do it all the time.
Yes.
It was nice to see him bottle it at the end. Great.
I'm sorry, Mel. You picked the wrong show to pop up in. But welcome along, Mel. Hope you're all right. Hope you're well. Hope the family's well as well over there in Canada. But Prashant said there, and we'll end on this one. Steve, do you think we need a new sporting director? Again, it's back to the John Rudkin. It's his fault if the female toilets in the away end are blocked. But whoever's doing that role, it's not going to change the attitude of the players, is it?
That's where you need the seed. That's where you need the seed to start to grow. And then as the branches start to spring, You buy a player to fit a position. You buy a player to go into the system that you want to do. You don't just buy a player because he's played for a certain club and he's an international player and buy a name. That's what's been happening. Every player that Leicester brought has been brought in to play as everybody else has been playing. He's not been brought in to make a change, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think the sporting director has just gone out, oh, he's an international, he's worth 30 million. We can afford 30 million. We'll have him. And you buy him. The player comes in, he looks as much confused as everybody else. Because what have you brought him for? Is can he do for Leicester that he was doing at the other club? I don't think he can. Because that's your problem. And you go back to the olden days and you go back to the teams now, is that they've learned through the big money mistakes where you just go out and buy big names. So that you start to do now, you buy players to play in your system how you want them to play. And then you encourage them to do that. But then you've also got to encourage the players around them. Why have I brought this player? What's his attributes? It's like you see it a lot in games. You get one player who's on the purple patch. Everything does is right. What should you be doing? Giving him all day long. But then you'll find that they start to ignore him and they start going back over the other side. And then his threat now has gone. His threat's gone because you're not giving him the ball. And that's the message that the players should be giving all over the pitch. They should be doing it. How many times have you seen Leicester being cut apart and then easily? There's not one player gone, right, I want you to tuck in 10 yards. I want you to stop him from running. I want you to do that. You don't see any of that. You don't see the on-field things thinking, this is how I'm going to stop him. They just let it happen. And that's been the problem. You need somebody with some bollocks, a leader on the pitch saying, right, I don't care what the manager says. What he says is that was before the game. The ball in the game at the moment doesn't dictate the system how we're playing. Let's go and hurt him. Let's go and put a bit of effort in. Bang.
I did say that was the last question, but I just want to ask you one more if I can, because taking that point you've just made, I mean, I would throw Samari and Daka at you for that one. Both of them were sort of winning things in the last clubs, one in France, one in Austria. Neither of them have done anything in this country since we bought them. I mean, I can remember Man United when Liverpool were dominant pre-Alex Ferguson, and all they did was go out and buy the best players. Didn't necessarily, and they still didn't win anything because there was no plan that this is the type of player we need. You don't buy somebody just because, in my mind, they're a winner. It's got to be a player that's going to fit into that team. Now, I always say that it should be the final decision should be that the manager should choose which player he wants, or at least the positions he wants. But the argument I get against that, I guess, is, well, if you then go and sack the manager, you got a load of players maybe that the new manager doesn't want. But who should have the final say on the players that come in?
The manager, because the manager's got to work. He's got to work his system. Yeah. He's got to work his tactics. And I feel that that's where football's gone wrong. Why do you need a director of football? Why does he go out and buy players? And I go back to the scenario when we were talking off air. I offered my services to Leicester as a scout. I spoke, I sent in texts, I sent in emails to this John Woodkin and whatever. Not even got a toss back. And that's the mindset of the people, is that I don't know what he does in the game. I can't really slag him off because I don't know him. But what do all these football directors do in these situations?
That is a question that we have been asking about John Woodkin all season. But I have to say, you are a very intelligent man because you agree with me. That one. Look, Steve, I know it.
I'll turn it round to you now as well, right? You go back to when Leicester won the Premiership, right? That team created stars, Danny Drinkwater, Maguire, people like that, right?
Yeah.
When they got the recognition, or they got highlighted of that season. People wanted to buy them. What happened to them when they moved on? They couldn't play the same way they played with Leicester, so they fell to the side. And that's the thing that you should be learning from football. It was Leicester and the style of play that got them players and won the Premiership that league that year. The style of play and the determination of the players. That's what's got Leicester down, is the style of play and the determination of the players.
I think that was one of the reasons why Vardy never went to Arsenal, because I think he realised that Arsene Wenger wouldn't play to his strengths, and he'd probably stick him on the wing like Hodgson had done for England.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you look at you. I'll throw it to you then, because you're a Leicester man through and through, and I only watch so many games, but I do follow and support them, right?
Mm.
Can you tell me how individually how them players play, or how they're supposed to play? Can you tell me their strengths and can you tell me their weaknesses?
I could probably tell you a lot of the weaknesses, but whether it would be fair or not. But no, it's I don't think, like you alluded to this earlier, I don't think that they know themselves.
No, because they've all got that same mentality now.
Mm.
And that picture there that you've got on your thing there says it all. Says it all. And that's, you got two there, but that was it through the whole of the team.
Mm.
You just want to see a leader. You want to see somebody kicking somebody. You want to see somebody saying, well, I don't mind paying you £50 a week because he'll run for you for 90 minutes and he'll get stuck in and do whatever. That's what football's all about. And
do you think that had a big say in why Jamie Vardy left us? I mean, he's not leaving us and retiring. He's leaving us and wanting another club.
Because he's set in his ways. I don't know the whole thing around it, but is he getting the service he used to get? Is he getting the backup he used to get?
No.
Right? You look at that, the frustrations of him. You see him when he was running and he wasn't getting the ball. You used to think, 2 or 3 years ago when I made that run, I was getting the ball.
Yes.
But now I'm not getting it. But then we're giving the ball away. Do I see anyone, mate, winning the ball back to attack again? No, you don't. No. You just see the whole back four and the whole midfield four drop and drop and drop. They don't challenge anybody. They'll just stay blocking spaces off. And it's so easy to play a mark against. But then when we do get it, how many of those do you see break? You don't.
Fortunately, hardly any, and that's the problem. I mean, Prashant says there, and I've got to say it's a good point. Steve, I think you'd be a good choice for manager next season. I mean, definitely, to be honest with you. And I promise you this will be the final question, a quick one. Do you think that it will be Rude that's leading us next season, or do you think he'll be gone once we get to the new PSR year in July?
To be honest, and I don't think the championship suits him, and I don't think he's the kind of man that doesn't want to be in the championship. He wants to be. He's a name. He wants to be in the Premiership, and that's how these top names are. And then, you feel sorry for the guy who's going to come in, win the championship for him. Like you look at the Leeds situation where he gets some promotion, and they go, you're not good in the Premiership and stuff like that. But it's hard for me now to see Rude motivate the players in the Championship. And I think if he does stay, you'll see it in the first quarter of the season that Leicester might sink as well. Because you look at the club sometimes, Sunderland went through it where they went drop through the leagues. You got Luton doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. Luton, when they got promotion and their first season in the Premiership, wow, what a team. Yeah. Look what's happened to them. Look at the spiral they're going into. I hope it doesn't happen to Leicester.
Well, we've got the points deduction to take into account as well.
And that's another thing as well, you know what I mean? Why is Man City being allowed to go on so long with that many charges when the clubs like Leicester and they get hit straight away, bang, straight away, you've got this? Man, I think
deep down, I think we probably do know the answer to that one, don't we?
Something scandalous there, seriously. And I don't know,
100%. Steve, I really do, and I have been stalking you to get you back on. Hopefully, we can do something more together next season. Love having you on. I always know we're going to get an honest answer with you, and that's what we want. Really,
that's why, to be honest, I can't do any commentary or stuff like that because people know that I'll swear and I'll say something I shouldn't do because you know what I mean. I've had some people, I was slagging Man United off on Facebook, and I had an ex-pro text me and saying, "Well, you bang out of order. You shouldn't be doing this. You used to be a player, but." I used to be a player. I was a player, but I was nobody, different to anybody else. If they're playing shit, I'll tell them they're playing shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how I got brought up. And I think, you look at everybody my age, your age now, and other people, where we can say, whoa, I used to be scared stiff of the beat, Bobby. If you've done something on the street, he'd come and clap you around the ear hole.
Yeah.
But now you're getting 12, 13-year-olds off in the coppers out. And you feel sorry, But that's society as it is that we'll never get that back.
No.
We'll never get that back. And I think that's, I'm going away from football now. I think that's what's wrong with the youth. And I think that's wrong with us now is that they're not scared of anything anymore. They can say and do what they like because they know that they've got the backing of everybody.
Yeah. As Ray said there, refreshing honesty. So, indeed. Steve, like I say, hopefully we'll get you on more again now.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you so very, very much. Always appreciate because it's your personal time you're giving up here. Really do appreciate it. So thank you very much. Love to all the family, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yes, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant.
I hope we haven't upset too many people.
Don't worry. Let's face it. These days, you upset people just by looking at them, don't you? So,
okay. Of course you do. I do that to the wife all the time.
I'm not going now. I'm not getting involved with that one. You're on your own, mate. Thanks so much, Steve. All the best. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much to Steve there. Like you said, Ray, refreshing honesty. You get that with Steve, and that's why I love the guy so much. And sorry, Melina, I did say we weren't going to talk Arsenal or Tottenham. He hates Tottenham just as much as he hates Arsenal. Not sure which one he hates more, but I think he hates them both with equal disdain. Ray says we're Leicester supporters. We used to being upset. And like I say, please take that blog up at the top there. Get onto Leicester Till I Die TV. You can see there, this is the 8th and the last one in the Project Reset series. We looked at who was to blame. Was it the players? Did the fans have a lot of input in that as well? The board, the owners. I think having done the 8 shows, I've come to the conclusion that basically we're just shit. Things, in the word of D-Ream, things can only get better. Thanks to everybody that's in the chat. I'll be back at 9 o'clock with the news show. So I'll see you then. Take care, everybody. All the best. And once again, thank you very much to Steve. I'll be back Monday at 7 with Julian Watts, the ex-player. The programme we tried to do last night, weren't able to because Google were having their outrage. And so we weren't able to do it. So we'll be doing that Monday at 7, 9 o'clock tonight. We've got Manny on from Blue Tinted Glasses. Thanks so much to everybody. If you've been listening, find the podcast platform, whichever your favourite one is. Thank you very much as well for lending me your ears. Good night. I'll see you at 9.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.